All right, so let's talk Misty Mountains. All we need is a piece of paper, pencil or two with a nice point on it, and we'll need a paper towel or Kleenex or tissue or something later on to do some buffing with our shading to get it nice and smooth. What we're looking for here is this is an abstract landscape. It's not highly detailed, so it's not a realistic drawing, but it is still of a recognizable subject matter. And I'll show you how to kind of create that right now. So the first thing you got to understand about mountains is that mountains are not really, they're not shaped like this, okay? They're not pointy triangular things. They're actually much more gradual, and they have little bumps and nooks and crannies, but they're not sharp, all sharp angles and triangles. So when I start my mountains here, I'm actually gonna start near the bottom of my page. I'm just gonna create sort of a lumpy, sort of wavy line that kind of comes from, I didn't start at the very corner, but I started at the bottom of my page, peeked up, and then came off the edge like that. And really what I'm doing here is I'm just going to try to create a few layers of these things in order to create the sense of depth. So I'll do another one coming from this side. And maybe I'll do one more layer here in the background that has, kind of goes all the way across the page. So I've created this sense of depth already by the placement on the page. The stuff that's at the bottom of the page is going to look closer to you. The stuff that's at the top is going to look further away. And I've furthered that sense of depth by having overlapping things. So this piece here overlaps this piece. So this will look closer to us than that. And this will look closer to us than this. And the sky in the background will look the furthest away of all. Now, what I really need to do now, in order to sort of completely solidify this effect, what I'm going to do is start some shading. And the shading takes quite a bit of time for the front piece, but it moves much faster as we go backwards into space. It's just that the front piece needs to be dark. So when I shade, I got to take my time. Now, what I like to do when I shade something that's really large and I need a large dark area, I kind of think about little segments about that big at a time, maybe a ½ inch square. And I just kind of keep adding in that fashion instead of going all the way across the page. It turns out neater, and my hand doesn't tire out as fast either. But this will take some time, so just sort of watch for a moment and you'll see it's going to take me a little time to get from here to there. If my pencil starts to dull up, obviously sharpen, or I'm just going to grab another one here. I brought over a couple pencils at the beginning of this so that I wouldn't have to walk away. If you have a couple little white spots showing here and there, that's actually completely fine because we will do the buff that we've done in the past with paper towel over the top, and that'll smooth all the segments out. And yes, this part is time consuming, but the rest of it will move much faster. My pencil's getting a little dull. It's almost kind of ready to be, you know, there we go. There it is. So let's grab another one. I'm just going to start doing the same thing. Sometimes when your pencil's a little too sharp, it might start to scratch your paper a little bit, so you might want to actually kind of rub that pencil on a separate sheet of paper just for a minute first so that it's not too sharp and you're not scratching into the paper that you're working on. You want to get dark tones, but you don't want to dig into the paper to where you have like permanent creases and white lines that are showing. I want to make sure I'm very conscious of my edge here, and I want to make sure I get shading right up against the edge of my line because I do want to have a nice defined shape in the end after I blend in. But the other thing I want to do is I want to have the shading itself define the shapes. I don't want to see dark lines separating these objects. I want to see the shades just kind of gradually run into each other. So what I'll do here is just do a preliminary buff so you can kind of see what that looks like. For the sake of time, I won't finish this first area. But my shading would go all the way to the edge eventually. That actually looks kind of cool just like that. Now the thing is, I need to have these other areas be lighter, right? So when I shade my next zone, the beautiful part is it's not going to take nearly as long. I'm just going to kind of use the side of the pencil. And again, I'll just shade this first part of it here and I'll blend it in and I'll show you a finished one at the end too, so you can see where it goes. So this would be my next tone, somewhere around a medium gray. Maybe I'll go a little darker than that to tilt my paper slightly. I want each section to be a different tone, so. And again, I would go all the way to the edge. I'm just trying to show you the basic idea here for sake of time, and then I'll show you a finished one. And then when I get into this top area here, I'm really barely touching the pencil to the paper, using a very light touch. And what I'll do at the end of this section specifically is I'll go back and I'll erase that hard outline so that we just have a transition right into this gray from the background. It's not a jump across a line. Just lighten that line up a little bit. Now for the sky, we can do a light shade up there. We can actually just take that dirty paper towel that we've been using, maybe even pick up a little bit more shade from here, and just smudge a little bit into that sky area. It'll read like clouds, and what it will be is it won't be quite so uniform across. You'll have some areas that are a little darker than others. This is what a finished one looks like. And you can see we have a dark mountain shape in front, medium, light, and then that little sort of streaky, smudgy sky. And that's the overall effect that you want to get. So this is Misty Mountain project. It's the first thing right now in Classroom. Give it a shot.